Hey, team players, and welcome back. Today we are doing our first DFS for week 1 of the season. We're going to be giving some more live best ball drafts, always being interactive, answering your questions, giving you what you need so you can not just win money on DraftKings underdogs, but win your entire championship when redraft starts. So let's start now.
What's happening?
Let's dive right into it, man. I mean, Underdog is on top of it for their DFS. They got it out. We got our initial rankings in terms of the value for folks.
Yeah, so let's get cracking. I mean, this is an early look. So just so everybody understands, we're not submitting these lineups today. We're just kind of taking a look at the potential because we're still many weeks away. These prices are going to stay the same. What's up, Jamie? How's it going? And when we look at these lineups today, what we're going to be thinking about, and feel free if you're in the chat to share some of your opinions about DFS lineup building for week 1. But what we're going to be looking at today is we're going to be looking at value. We're going to be looking at potential builds. We're going to be looking at bringbacks and stacks and things that we think could pop off based upon a couple things, noting some lines in the first week, and also just taking into account some of the value that we have here. So, just a real quick look at the top half of the board here, Joe. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, flexes, and defenses. I always think it's really interesting, and I just want to make this point here about defenses, is that there are many kind of ways to approach defenses in DFS building. Sometimes people just take the lowest price defense that they think could produce points and put it in there. And some people want to take the defense that is going to produce the most points. And so I want to start there because I think that the crux of some of these lineups is trying to fit in a defense. And it's oftentimes trying to look at like a square peg in a round hole, right? Is that you want a defense that's not going to hurt you. And you also want a defense that is going to put you in the top 5% of lineups, right? And sometimes that's really hard to do. So obviously, when you take a look at the first defense that's on the board, you're looking at the Denver Broncos. And the Denver Broncos were one of those defenses last year, Joe, that produced at a really, really, really high rate in terms of fantasy points. There was not an instance in time really where you weren't thinking about wanting to put the Denver Broncos in your lineup, but they were just too expensive. And this point, they are still the most expensive defense, but they are probably the best defense on the board, pound for pound, in terms of what they could offer you the first week of the season. So when you look at Tennessee, looking at
actually, I have them as the second least points allowed in terms of final score. For week 1, I have Denver as the second best of that. And there's a real strong correlation between points allowed in real life and fantasy points produced. I mean, think about it. You're getting interceptions and stuff. You're not allowing the other team to score on you.
Right.
And Bob, we're right there with you. I mean, Denver is number 2 on the board when we look at this analytics for week 1.
Yeah, and so when you take this into account too, you look at the NFL betting lines, and right now, if you just pull up FanDuel and you were to look, the Denver Broncos are in one of the lowest over and unders of the week 1 games. They're at 41.5. And what do I see? Well, I see a team that's going to be facing a rookie quarterback, a team that their offensive line has gotten a little bit better, but a team that's not up to always producing numbers, right? And so that's a defense that initially, you look at the $3,800 salary and you're like, wow, that's really expensive, but I think the price is worth it during a first look kind of view. Now, looking down the board here, I think another defense that pops out at me, just because of the sheer value that you could potentially be getting out of this defense, so $1,000 cheaper, and you see the New York Jets. And why do I say the New York Jets? Well, you have a defense here that is playing their former quarterback. A team that has in practice gotten reps against Aaron Rodgers, knows what Aaron Rodgers does, knows what makes him tick. And you see here that they do have one of the best cornerbacks in the league, who I saw got banged up a little bit in training camp, but still were weeks away. But here we have also a Steelers team that can't produce points. They were not producing points last year. Now, will Aaron Rodgers make a difference? Of course they can. But also, mind you, what Justin Fields can bring to the table here, right? We have a running quarterback that can extend plays. And when you extend plays, that means your offense is on the field more. I don't know if the Steelers in week 1 are capable of extending a whole lot of plays as it goes for their offense. The jury's still out, but I think at 2,800, I would be willing to buy in to the Jets defense.
See, Bob, I'm just telling you, for my defense, one of the ones that I like a lot, that they're not super cheap, is the Patriots. The Patriots, we got projected as a top 3 defensive points allowed. They're a team that is playing Vegas, who, let's face it, new coaching staff that Vegas does. Pete Carroll historically runs the least amount of plays per offense. He's a very slow offense. So it's harder to put up more points, period, when you run less plays. They also aren't all that explosive. On the same conversation of that, the Raiders themselves are a good argument to pick, because in that game, both teams heavy running the ball, both teams lack explosion. I mean, there's just, when your most explosive player on the entire field is a tight end, that game doesn't got a lot of explosion. So I'm looking at either one of those two. I give the edge to the Patriots because they're at home, and rookies. You have an entire offseason to stop a rookie. You normally do it, which is Vegas' game plan. So I would lean towards the Patriots, but giving me the cheap version of the Raiders, I'm also on the bus with.
And that's a totally fair assessment to make, especially when you look at their point spreads, Joe. Vegas is right now, Vegas and the betting public and the Sharks are assuming that this line, 42.5, is most likely where this game ends up, maybe a little bit less. And the line is really close to 2.5 points. We're not looking at something. This game is probably going to be closer than a lot of people think. The Patriots, their cornerbacks, it's one of the benefits of that defense. So where could we see that falling apart? Well, maybe Ashton Genty comes out and has a rocking game, or one of the better games in his rookie season. And for that reason, for the price of 2,600, and again, this is just an example, guys, of how you potentially look at it and kind of looking ahead. So when you take a defense, one of the things to also build into this is looking at the running back correlation in the bring back, right? So when you're looking at this and saying, should I take the Raiders defense? Should I take New England's defense? Well, I think when we look at the data, and the data supports it, if the game is going to benefit a singular defense, right, that means that a player from that team is also going to benefit. And if the Raiders are up in this game, who do you want? Well, you want the running back. You want Genty. So if you want to buy into the Raiders at this price of 2,600, then it also makes sense that even though Ashton Genty is one of the higher priced running backs on the slate and not a great value, that this build that costs 9,600 would make sense for a potential lineup that you have in. Conversely, if you wanted to also play into that defense that we were just talking about of the Patriots cost a little bit more. But when you take a look at their running game, and say you wanted to push Henderson, he's at 5,500. And you say you wanted to push Stevenson, he's at 5,400. So it does work both ways. And let's say just for the sake of this moment, you bought Henderson and the Patriots defense. This then brings us to another point to make, is that if you think that New England is going to be running the ball against the Patriots, and the Patriots are, and New England's going to be running the ball, and that the Raiders are going to have to play catch up, well, then that means that I probably want to force into my lineup in some way a piece of the offense from the other side. So I get a Jacoby Myers in there to play against that New England running game, because if I think the Patriots are going to do well, then that means the Raiders are going to have to play catch up through the air.
And so this is how you do correlated narratives, where you believe in a narrative, because if you're right, this is the way it has to go. I mean, if you believe the Patriots control the clock, this is how Vegas would have to play in counter response. And this is one of the things that I really love about when you're doing DFS correctly. How do you jump into it? So one of the games that we think is going to be a sneaky shootout that no one else is like really excited, like, oh, like this could be big. I think New Orleans has a chance of putting up some points. It's going to be a losing effort, but I think the Saints could put up some points in week 1.
This is kind of where we get like a really interesting dynamic build that you could potentially see here. And what I'm going to throw at you is I'm just going to initially build into this lineup a Trey McBride. Trey McBride is slated in our rankings to have the highest ceiling of every tight end in week 1. So when you look at ceilings of tight ends, which we want to look at in a game like this, where you can have a tight end pop off for 25, 30 points potentially as a primary pass catcher, that really then says, oh, okay, well, do I want to also buy in to the quarterback? Well, let's play devil's advocate and say that you want to put Kyler Murray into your lineup. I'm assuming week 1 that this play of Kyler Murray versus Trey McBride is going to be really, really, really high owned. I'm going to presume that this is going to be high owned because a lot of people are down on this specific version of the Saints. Now, you might say, well, like, Joe, what could I do
Jamie, we will jump into the Niners, but yes.
What could I potentially use as a piece in this game that could pop off? Well, if New Orleans is behind, maybe I buy Olave at 5,100. That price is really fair for a guy like Olave.
Really
let's say you don't like Olave and you want to shoot for Shaheed, even cheaper with a chance at a bigger deep ball threat. Now, he could also get 7 points. But the cost at 4,600 is also a cost that makes a lot of sense, Joe, when you're thinking about building a bring back into a potential game like this. Also, you can ignore that whole passing offense if you want to and take a guy with one of the highest ceilings in week 1, which is
all the checkdowns to Kamara. Yeah.
So you can.
I actually think doing a 2-2 isn't crazy in that game. I personally wouldn't do Murray. I would do a 3-1 and save the money on the quarterback.
And that's fair.
I can see the route.
For example, if you by week 1, we're going to know who the starting quarterback is, and both of these quarterbacks for New Orleans are priced at 4,800, and we know,
which to me is the steal. You get a starting quarterback who's going to chuck the ball over a yard for 48. You take it.
Here's the other piece here, right? So let's say, and again, this is just a Mondo stack, and you can do lineups like this if you want to push certain things into your lineup. And let's just say, for devil's advocate's sake, we also throw in one of also the higher, probably going to be a higher owned player in week 1, and James Conner. James Conner is probably going to have a decent amount of volume in this game, where the passing game of New Orleans is probably going to have to play catch up. So if you don't want to build Trey McBride, you can build something sneaky like this, because we know Kamara is an excellent pass catcher. Build in another pass catcher.
You have enough money to throw in a Chase and a Njoku stack in Cincinnati.
So this is what we're getting to. So what this does, by taking a lower owned player who could potentially go off, he could potentially bust too. This is again just an example of how you can begin thinking about your week 1 lineup. You then also build in a mini with a bring back and a tight end and a wide receiver. So we know that Cincinnati is probably going to have one of the worst pass defenses or overall defenses this year. We have
So Cleveland.
We have Njoku, who's probably going to be targeted a decent amount in this game. Then you have Chase on the other side, who is slated to have the highest ceiling, or one of the higher ceilings, and one of the higher floors. So you look at this and say, all right, well, I've got a team now that I have a little bit of ambiguity in Shook. Maybe I don't want that week one. Maybe I want to push something out. But again, there's no tape on Shook playing with New Orleans right now specifically, right?
Nor is there on the offensive coach.
So now I'm here with $5,133 remaining. I've got Cincinnati and Cleveland. I got part of that game. I've got the New Orleans, Arizona game. And by the way, this New Orleans, Arizona game is at 41.5. So the over and under is really low comparatively to some other games, but also the spread is 5.5. So that does benefit James Conner. So if the game sits and stays at that spread, this does benefit James Conner. So then you come in and you say, all right, well, I've got three positions left. I haven't decided what defense that I want. Well, usually I want to pair a running back up with one of my defenses that I decide to do. Maybe I throw the Jets in there, and in my flex, I take Breece Hall. Now I have 6,200 left. I've got 3 running backs that all have upside, 2 of them upside in the passing game. Maybe you want to fill that with and I've seen this done where you can go double tight end if the tight end, if that's kind of what you want to do. And it leaves one spot left that could be completely.
You got a lot of money left for this spot. I mean,
it can be completely up in the air. Maybe you want to build in a Jerry Jeudy to go along with this game, Cleveland, Cincinnati, knowing that Cleveland's going to have to keep up. Maybe you build in Jeudy. Maybe you build in Waddle because Indy's going to probably have a little bit of problems coming out of the gate. Maybe you want to build in Marvin Harrison still to go along with that game stack that you were just making. And same thing goes. Maybe DK's the guy that you want to put into this lineup. Just because we mentioned Tennessee and Denver before, throwing Cam Sutton in there. And here you have a lineup that, while on paper it doesn't look fantastic, it's a lineup that
you got a lineup with 2 stacked running backs and Jamar Chase in it. I like that lineup.
This is a lineup that has 3 running backs that each have 24+ point ceiling upside. You have 3 wide receivers, 2 of which have big touchdown upside. And then you have a quarterback that's kind of just out there.
He just gives you average. You're in the money.
We don't know much about it. And we're gonna keep talking here, but I want to answer Jamie's question first before we build another lineup here, thinking about narratives.
So Jamie's asking, what about Kittle with Ayuk not being healthy and Juwan Jennings in the news? Can you see him as a value? So the thing with Kittle is I mean, I always see Kittle as a value starting point. So when you look as far as how the Niners have to build it, the Niners always kind of feel, and this has really been true for the last 2.5 years, like they're a bruise and you just keep pushing on it just so you can feel pain. Like that's just how they are. Like they're nothing super happy or exciting about them. It's always something else is a little bit wrong. Something else is a little bit wrong. And sure, they have nice shiny objects, but I'm not really sure I want to live there. And that's kind of what the Niners are. So in terms of getting one of those shiny objects and having it pay off for a week, I can see Kittle doing it. The thing with Kittle is he's not crazy expensive. I would like him to be cheaper as a tight end, but I also don't think he's going to give you wide receiver 2 numbers either. So it's balancing it with a grain of salt. So that's how I will look at it.
Looking at this, Jamie, and just looking at week 1 specifically and not the rest of the season, when we look at the values of certain players on this board, while I do think Kittle is going to have a great week 1, do I think that the price indicates that he is going to produce to the capacity that it's, over my average remaining salary, right? So, I'm looking at it saying, well, if I'm going to spend $5,800 on Kittle, what's it going to take for me to get to McBride? Because McBride is only $400 more. And can I build into my lineup something like that? But let's say I want to go Kittle, Joe. Let's say I want to go Kittle and I want to build Kittle into the lineup because I do think Kittle has a safe enough floor in this offense. He's also going to get a good amount of touchdown upside week one. What's happening, Nick? Hope it's going good for you too, man. We're just talking about some DFS first looks before we get into some best ball today and some redraft stuff. But looking at Kittle, Joe, let's say we build Kittle into this lineup, right? And maybe he's the only player from this game we want to put in. This game has an over and under of 45.5 and a 2.5 point spread. So let's answer Nick's question here before we talk a little bit more about this. So which order do I usually go in the draft? Running back, quarterback, wide receiver? For me, it really depends on, and I say this all the time when building best ball teams, it really depends on how much flexibility that I want in my roster as I go down. So I think that all things the same, I want a running back with pass catching upside first. And if I can't get a running back with pass catching upside, I want a heavy volume based wide receiver. So if I'm looking at the board and I'm in round one and I have the option to take Gibbs or Bijan, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it oftentimes over guys like CeeDee Lamb, even though CeeDee Lamb has high volume upside. If I have the opportunity and I'm in the position to do it, I'm absolutely taking Bijan number one overall. You're going to see a lot of people out there also taking Bijan number one overall. But I think that there are so many metrics and so many things that outside of something crazy happening, that he should be the first running back off the board. Now, as you go down later in the draft, let's say you're in position 7 through 12. I can convince myself to take Devin Achane somewhere in that 7 to 12 range because I think he has a lot of upside, but he also has a lot of risk. And for those people that don't want to have a lot of risk in their first round pick and just want that to be a high ceiling, high floor kind of guy, I think that you could be comfortable pushing a high volume wide receiver. So the likes of Neighbors, again, injured. Amon-Ra, again, dealing with some concerns with injury. Nico, always an injury risk, but still high volume. Coming back again in the second round, then, if you're at the back end, Joe, you're still dealing with those high volume wide receiver guys. But by the time you come back in the third round, you don't have a lot of upside in terms of the running backs, in terms of both pass catching and running. So for me, if I took a wide receiver in round one and I'm sitting 7 through 12 and I took a wide receiver, let's say I took Nico round one, I absolutely want Bucky on the way back or Devin Achane on the way back if Achane or Bucky is there. I want, hey, King, what's happening, man? Yeah, Nick, I want, when I'm dealing with redraft drafts, I want a high volume wide receiver to target. There are many high volume wide receivers to target. Some of them Joe doesn't like. Some of them I don't like, but some of them
I love.
But when it comes to having anxiety about options, and we can lead this in a lot of different ways, but it also depends upon the drafting of your league mates. In my home league, we draft a lot of running backs early. So I know that if I don't get a running back early, I'm not going to get a good one. So I tend to have to.
You have to be able to read the draft. That's what makes this conversation hard, Nick. You got to know what your draft is.
Last year, I bucked that, went A.J. Brown instead of Saquon Barkley. It bit me in the ass. It didn't work out. So you have to know your league settings. You have to know your league rules and all of that. But when it comes to what I'm targeting, high volume, we're going to use this just week one numbers here to kind of look at. So we'll get to him. We'll get to him in a minute there, Jamie. when you look at this, Nick, and you look at the high volume kind of plays, the high volume wide receivers that you're going to target at the end of the first round, early second round, from pick 7 to pick 18, most likely, you're going to have guys like Puka, Nico, Amon-Ra, Neighbors, BTJ, guys like Ladd, Drake London. And then the rest of these, you're going to be able to get back end of the second, early third. So when you look at that type of talent, we want to target a guy that's capable of 100 plus targets, 120 plus targets. One of the players that Joe doesn't like, that I know members of the chat like, and I do like myself in terms of what could be for this player, is Drake London. If I went running back round 1 or wide receiver round 1, and I want an upside play at wide receiver, I'm going Drake London. We have to remember Michael Penix was one of the college football leading passers when he was at Washington. So he is fully capable of supporting a wide receiver 1 overall. Now, you look at it and you say, well, is London that guy? Maybe he's not that guy, but London is absolutely going to be targeted a high degree in this offense because let's look at it. Just looking at all things of this offense, you have Bijan, the fulcrum of the offense. He's going to keep moving the ball down the field. Then you have London, and you have a beat-up Darnell Mooney, and you have Kyle Pitts. Who knows what we're going to get with Kyle Pitts this year. And then we have Ray McLeod and Nick Nash. So you look at it and you say, those other pass catchers don't really dictate, outside of maybe Mooney, more than 70 targets, 80 targets. So you look at it and you say, okay, well, if Michael Penix Jr. is going to perform to potentially his ADP and maybe get 20, 23, 24 passing touchdowns and 3,500 yards, maybe a little bit more than that, Drake London is going to be in for a significant role in the season. Maybe those numbers in touchdowns, maybe you're looking at a floor probably around somewhere in like that 4-5 range, and you're looking at a ceiling of like 10, 11 touchdowns out of Drake London. Now, the only piece of that gets in the way would absolutely be Bijan Robinson. So I don't want to over talk on a guy like London, but again, this stat this is a stat that's out there to look at. Jamie has here 35% target share and 40% of the team air yards for London in the small sample size that they were together. So that's a guy that I'm absolutely targeting in round 2 at the back end. I love that team name, the Smitty Committee. I love it. Nick is asking about Eagles themed fantasy team names. I'll try to think of some good ones as the show goes on. So Nick, that's kind of like round 1, round 2. And I think Joe, he'd be absolutely on guys like Nico and Bucky.
Well, we're going to do a live draft later, so you'll be able to see them. In fact, actually, Bob, let's make this our last DFS so we can fit in a live draft.
Yeah. So we'll
do it on underdog here.
Yeah, so we're looking over some of the salaries of week 1. We built an initial lineup that is it's ugly, but it puts a lot of things into perspective. So what I'd like to do for this lineup, Joe, is I'd like to center this lineup around a guy like George Kittle. So, a recommendation here from Jamie, just throwing him out there on the board, see what we can build with him. So Kittle here, and like Joe said, we're going to be doing a best ball draft after this on Underdog. So taking a look at this again, DraftKings is full PPR. So we get Kittle. Kittle can maybe get 6 catches, 80 yards, and maybe 2 touchdowns in this game, Joe. So this is a game that if you like the San Francisco 49ers, this is kind of one that you might want to target. Now, coming and looking at the quarterbacks now. We talked a little bit about Murray. We talked a little bit about Shook a little bit earlier in the show. And, I think Jayden Daniels is not a good price here at 7,000. And I get the Joe Burrow at 6,900, but I'm probably avoiding that for the time being. Would you agree to that, or would you disagree to that?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay. So one of the guys that I just want to touch on today, and next week we'll dive in a little bit more to some of the numbers, is I'd like to kind of just look at a guy like Bryce Young. and I'd like to look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence. This game here could be absolutely ugly. This is a game where there might not be any defense being played. The over and under is set right now at 46.5. So for this lineup, Joe, I'm curious, which one do you like better, Bryce Young or Trevor Lawrence? Who do you think has more upside?
I think they're the same upside, so I picked the cheaper one, which is Lawrence.
Okay. So let's build a lineup with Lawrence. So
I think they're both bad selections, but
King, I do like Flacco week 1. I do like Flacco week 1.
I think that's Cleveland's only win of the year, actually.
Let's throw in Joe Flacco for the chat here. So we're throwing Joe Flacco, George Kittle into this lineup. Well, obviously, in this, I want some bringbacks. I want some players that I'm going to be able to use in this. So I'm absolutely building Judy, and I'd absolutely be building Jamar Chase.
I would argue take Judy out, save the money, put in Tillman.
Okay, we can do that. We can absolutely build in Tillman. He's cheaper. He also has a high ceiling for week 1.
He has a huge ceiling.
So Flacco, Tillman, Kittle, Chase. And you can easily build a Flacco, Tillman, Njoku Chase as well. Now you go to the running backs. So when you look at the prices for the running backs, I think a lot of running backs are priced well. I think that I'm not going to be on Gibbs and I'm not going to be on Bijan because I think they cost a little bit too much. But there's always that chance for a really high degree of explosion, right? So I think for this lineup here, that one of the players that we are going to put in here is Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs against Detroit. This Detroit defensive line is already hurt. There are already players on this line that are hurt. We know that Josh Jacobs is a terror when he's on the field.
That's a physical start to the season for Detroit.
And so we look at it and we say this game actually has one of the higher over and unders on the week 1 at 49.5. The only one higher is Baltimore Buffalo at 51.5. So you're looking at it and you're saying, well, I want a piece of that action. And when you look at the line in this game as well, this line is 1.5 spread right now. So we're assuming that this game is going to be closer than, close-ish, all things considered.
I'd put King Henry in it too.
So let's build Jacobs in this line. Well, we can't build Henry because he's the night game. So
that's true.
So when we look at what else could we build into this lineup, we scroll down the board a little bit more. And hey, maybe J.K. Dobbins gets the first team reps in game 1.
Well,
guess what? Tennessee that's
going to happen.
Tennessee has an awful defensive line. They can get absolutely shredded. And Dobbins is the guy that could do that. You could easily see a projection for a guy like J.K. Dobbins of plus 25 points if he gets the week 1 starting role.
Throw in a cheap defense and see how much money we can have here.
So we have here 14,600 left. And we say, okay, well,
what's the cheapest defense? Just
maybe the Titans are the cheapest defense. I'm not buying into the Titans. I'm not buying into the Browns. I'm not buying into the Saints. I'm not buying into any of this.
I would buy into Jacksonville, though.
You could buy into Jacksonville.
I can see Carolina doing nothing.
But the problem is that the Jaguars are priced at 3,200. So not something that I necessarily.
I read that backwards. My bad. Yeah. No, don't do that.
Okay. So if I build in if I build in Broncos defense to go with the theory that if I have the running back from a team, I want to build that defense on the other side. So I've got.
So you get a good mid-tier player here.
I've got 10,800 left to spend on a wide receiver and a flex. Well, remember what we were talking about earlier in that flexing a tight end isn't always the end of the world in DFS lineups. There has been occasional instances
Njoku and Higgins
where a tight end plays up to the role that they need to in a game. So let's say you want to build Kittle and Njoku. You got all the money. You got 6,100 to spend at wide receiver. And say you don't want Kittle and you want to put Njoku in there, you can do that. 6,100 at wide receiver still gives me some
you just missed out on Higgins.
Very, very good options. Maybe you want to throw Jameson Williams in there as, maybe Detroit's going to have to catch up to Green Bay in that game. Maybe you want to build in Debo against the Giants defense where they're going to have to push it down the field. Maybe you want to push Olave into your lineup. There are lots of options that you can capitalize on here. And let's just say you want to put Sutton in your lineup. This lineup for a week 1 game can absolutely smack. You have 2 tight ends that are plus 20-point upside guys. You are focusing on a game in Cincinnati and Cleveland where there is not a lot of defense to go around. You're pushing 2 running backs with 25+ point upside and a defense that can totally get turnovers. So this is a lineup that can absolutely play for you. Now, let's say you don't want to put Kittle into that lineup and you're nervous about it, right? And you just say, well, let's just put Njoku in there. And here I have $11,900 to spend on 2 guys. Okay, so maybe you want to focus and you want to get the double dip. Okay, you want to get Jamar and you want to get T. Okay, that leaves you $5,500 for your flex, and you're still going to get some quality players here. You could get your Jameson Williams. You could get your Jerry Jeudy's. You could even get Marvin Harrison if that's the game, like we said in the first game, that you want to capitalize on. Okay, so this lineup here without 2 tight ends still has a high degree of upside in week 1. So we're going to jump into some best ball lineup or best ball here.
I want to do an eliminator if you're cool with that.
But again, I'm saying, Joe, this first look, I'm really happy with a lot of these prices. These prices.
There's a lot of good in that first look. I do want to do an eliminator today, though. You guys cool with that?
All right, rack up your eliminator screen, and we'll get it going here.
Eliminator, we're going to fire into it here, guys. If you guys are logging in with us at 4:31 Eastern time, will be the time to log into your eliminator. 4:31 Eastern time. But Bob, part of the reason I would do the eliminator is because it goes right in line with you have to win week 1, and it's all this conversation we're having about week 1. And I love the eliminator format, man. I just can't stop talking it up. But let's get the housekeeping stuff in order of getting this set up so you guys can see it. That'd be pretty nice, right?
All right. And King, when I look at maxing, I'm not going to be maxing. I know that
I'm gonna come close, King.
I know that maxing gives you the when do we want to click, Joe?
31 at 4:31.
I know that maxing does give you a lot of advantages there, but I am most likely staying away from maxing out that tournament at this moment in time. And Joe might max out the eliminator. He absolutely loves it. Absolutely loves it.
I do love the eliminator.
And shout out to Jamie for this name.
I obviously love the Million Maker more because I want to play for the big money, but I love the eliminator.
So these are Philly themed names. Make Dallas cry again. I like that a lot.
8 people waiting in the eliminator right now, guys. Jump on into it.
I like that name. Kuna Melita is good. Hurts so good. If you're going with a Philly themed team name, Hurts so good, I think that wins it. That's kind of my favorite there.
Broken leg again.
And getting up to a guy. So week 1, a guy like Shakir does have high volume upside, but I don't see a touchdown upside for a guy like Shakir. Maybe that changes in this offense in this year, but there isn't a lot of upside there in touchdowns. So while you're getting him pretty late, there is probably not a time that I would be super comfortable starting him. And I think in DFS that his price is always, like last year, had always been like super middling because he was either going to get you like 12 points and he wasn't going to hurt you, but he also was never really scoring plus 25. So, there might have been one instance in time where he did that, but there's not a lot of touchdown upside to Shakir, but there is a good amount of volume, and with volume comes upside to a certain capacity. But like guys like Wan'Dale Robinson and guys like Shakir, where they're not going deeper downfield, it does hurt. That all volume, when you look at volume, it's nice, that all volume isn't necessarily the same.
I think Shakir is most likely to see your decrease the volume. King, I'm going to jump on your question first. First, I want to start with this Dynasty one from Crack Sandwich. I absolutely would not trade Bucky for A-Chain in a second. I believe Bucky's going to be the number one running back this year. I am all in on the Bucky bus. I am buying Bucky, not selling him.
Yeah, and I would
selling him and getting Gibbs for him.
So this is what I'd say to that, Crack. You know, I think that there's a lot of upside with A-Chan, and I think there's a lot of upside with Bucky. But I think, you know, A-Chan's numbers are somewhere in what we have already have seen.
Miami's a train wreck, ready to explode.
Let me say why. So he performed well, even with a train wreck of an offensive line last year in terms of total fantasy output. Now, in the games without Tua, he did not have those banger games that we were wanting him to have. Now, with Bucky, we saw his upside at the tail end of the season. And a lot of people, and we've talked about this last week, a lot of people are really nervous about the Liam Cohen leaving. But there is continuity with this offense overall. There is continuity within most of the coaching staff. The head coach didn't leave. The new offensive coach has come from this offense. So you are going to see similar characteristics. And now Rachaad White might do some damage into these numbers. Sean Tucker has gotten a lot of good coach speak recently. He's going to do some damage potentially into these numbers. But this coaching staff knows what they have in Bucky. And they know that he has, while he doesn't have elite metrics, he has great overall metrics, that he's a player that absolutely is going to have super upside this year. And all things considered, I really don't want to trade Bucky from an offense that's functional and a 2026 second rounder for an offense that is slightly more dysfunctional. So I think it's the pick. I think it's the pick that puts me over on this one, that say I don't want to do that. If it was Bucky for A-Chan straight up, I could probably see myself doing that. In an ideal world, I want both of them. In an ideal world, I want both of them, and I don't want to be trading Bucky. But I can understand you in a dynasty league. Maybe you're trying to use Bucky as an asset. If I was trading Bucky, I would want to be trading Bucky and picks for a guy like Bijan, not
A-Chan. You should be getting Bijan or Gibbs. And the other thing is, just wait on it. He's going to have an amazing year. You'll get so much a better return for him next year. Bucky's a guy to invest in.
Six people still in this eliminator, guys. We need 6 more people.
Yeah, we need 6 of you guys to jump in. There's 11 of you watching. Jump in the eliminator on Underdog. Draft along with us. King, to answer your question and to tell all you guys the strategy in which I will employ here in this eliminator is, I believe that the eliminator contest at the end of the day is all about having a successful floor. Yes, this is still best ball, that the peaks can happen, but the floor is what is necessary for survival in week to week. This is not like your traditional where I just have 3 massive weeks that will get me into the playoffs in a best ball mania. That's why that's a ceiling league. To me, this is all about the floor, because you need to be able to just pick it up and advance. And you can't, by definition, know when all the peaks are coming. So build a big, sturdy floor, and you'll be able to hang out with it that way.
Yeah, and Niner.
Hey, Joe, no problem doing weekly winners. Weekly winners is the exact opposite philosophy, by the way. Weekly winners is all about taking people to high explosive upside and hoping they line up.
So, Smitty, redraft QB Superflex League. Majority of the league.
By the way, Smitty, new logo from last year. Cool.
Yeah, I like that logo. If you had the number 1 pick, who would you take? And if you had the 12th, who are you taking back to back? So if I am in a Superflex League and this is a 2 quarterback and people start 2 quarterbacks, I'm absolutely either taking Lamar or Josh Allen number 1 overall. Okay. And it's the fact that the majority of your league starts 2 quarterbacks. So if I'm in a league where I know my league mates are not going to be starting 2 quarterbacks, and I know that I could reliably get a good player in the 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, whatnot, I wouldn't push Lamar or Josh Allen that high because I do see a lot of, that Bijan is going to be super valuable this year. But in a 2-quarterback league where most people start 2 quarterbacks, it absolutely has to be Josh Allen or Lamar. And I'm probably taking Lamar. I see a lot of value in Josh Allen, but I think that on a week-to-week basis, we've probably seen, both of Josh Allen and Lamar's floors, and we've seen their absolute ceilings. And the one thing that kind of shifts me to Lamar more so is that if you are a person that does not believe that Derrick Henry is going to stay healthy this year, then I think you should be buying a little bit more Lamar Jackson, only because when we say like fulcrums of teams, he is absolutely the guy that makes this team.
Oh, well, they both are. But the thing that Baltimore has in their favor, and therefore this helps Lamar over Buffalo, Harbaugh loves blowing people out, especially Ohio. And they're going to suck on defense this year. He's going to have 4 games of just stupid points. And whether that be weekly winners or survival, if you have Lamar, you're going to advance. Just the way that it is.
Now, and Joe, here's the other thing.
Buffalo doesn't blow people out the same way. Both of them are projected to be incredibly high-scoring offenses. I'm going Lamar, though.
If I'm at the 12th pick and I have back-to-back, you actually have an advantage of, rather than the first pick, I think this 12th pick gives you a little bit more competitive advantage because you're going to know what everybody has before you. So you're going to know pick 1 through 11, and you're going to be able to be flexible off that. For example, if you see the top 5 quarterbacks already off the board, and Jalen Hurts isn't there anymore, Daniels isn't there anymore, I'm probably not pushing a quarterback in round 1 or round 2. You've seen this before when
3 more guys, let's fill it.
You've seen this before when we've done the super flex leagues here. I'm absolutely not going to push a quarterback that has that's going to have a usual floor around 16 points, because that's probably not going to win me against my competition on a week-to-week basis. So I'm probably going to try to capitalize on them taking 5 or 6 quarterbacks already, because you're going to have all the top 5 options at wide receiver. You're going to probably have 2 or 3 of the top 5 options at running back on the board for you when you get to that 12th pick. Now, you might see then, by the time it gets back to me, I only might get a chance at J.J. McCarthy, or I might only get a chance at Caleb Williams. Well, I'm not sure that after you taking, all 2 very high option players, like, let's say you had Puka and CeeDee. Let's say they fall to 12 and 13 for you, Puka and CeeDee. I think all things considered, when you get to round 3 and you're at the back end of that draft there, that I would fully be willing to take a quarterback, whoever's there at that moment. Maybe you have, a Dak Prescott.
And I'm 7.
I'm 6. Damn it. There. And I think that for me would be kind of how I approach that, Smitty, where if I'm at 1, I'm absolutely taking the elite option at quarterback, whichever one you like. I like Lamar. I can see taking Josh Allen. I could see taking Jalen Hurts. I could see taking Daniels. I probably wouldn't take Daniels, though. But if I'm at the back half, I'm absolutely taking 2 position players, whatever ones are my most highly valued position players. And then I'm hoping that I get an option at quarterback that I don't hate in the 3rd round or 4th round. And then you also have that flexibility and say, well, if they're still not taking a lot of quarterbacks, I can go after more high valued players in the 3rd or 4th round. And I can push it as far as I need to, because I'm going to know what's happening at every stretch. And likewise, if I take the high value quarterback at 1, then I'm probably not going to be taking another quarterback likewise until round 4 or 5 if I'm drafting number 1 overall. So both positions in the draft have their advantage. And a lot of people like drafting first overall to get that Josh Allen or Lamar. I kind of also like the second position in that in a redraft QB Superflex league, and knowing that there's going to be a bunch of quarterbacks available. Again, like, there's no reason why you should be scared of Michael Penix. And
no, there's not.
he's like the 20th quarterback going off the board. So if he's your second quarterback, maybe he's your first quarterback, and you also have Jordan Love, and then you pair that up with Saquon and, Achane, sure. That I think that's perfectly viable in this format.
So, Bob, you're in the middle of this draft, so I don't want to hear you complaining that you missed your pick.
Well, I'm also right before you, and I hate that.
I'm unfortunately seeing that.
And it sucks. So,
Yeah, we're gonna snipe each other this entire draft.
So what do you?
Well, you're gonna take CD.
I might. Yeah, I am. Well.
You taking Puka?
Yeah, I'm gonna take CD. I can't get away from him. Every time I'm at 6 or 5, I can't get away from CD. I know that week 1 he plays Philly, and I really don't like that. But I do like when he gets to week, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think, he plays against Sauce Gardner week 5, and Denver week 8. There's when you look at Dallas's schedule, it is not forgiving by any stretch of the imagination.
Nope.
Philly, the Giants, Chicago, Green Bay, Jets, Carolina, Washington, Denver. That screams to me that they are going to be lining up George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, and they're just going to be throwing 40 times a game to just stay competitive with some of these teams. You're welcome, Crack.
I do know.
Not a big Penix fan. I prefer the booty. Love it. Booty might not make the team. We'll see. Keyshawn Booty. I see Genty, Thomas. What I was really thinking about, Joe, was throwing everybody off and taking BTJ at 6.
That would have been stupid.
I know, but I was just throwing. I was going to throw.
I don't think BTJ's worth the second round pick.
I think he's worth it enough.
So Zach Moss getting cut is definitely a ringing endorsement for Chase Brown.
I love it.
There is no way around
that. I think in the eliminator, like we talked about on Monday and last week, that you do need a high profile, high upside running back. Chase Brown, when you look at the running backs that are still left on the board right now, Chase Brown, Breece Hall, Kamara are kind of the only ones that also exhibit upside in terms of the passing game. Until you get maybe lower to Tyrone Tracy. So I'm willing to bite the bullet on Chase Brown there. In terms of SummerSlam predictions here, King, let me pull up the matchups. I didn't even pay attention. All right, SummerSlam card. Here we go. All right, Gunther versus CM Punk. I cannot see Gunther falling to CM Punk in that matchup. Oh, there's Omarion Hampton round 2, Joe. There you go. News about Najee might not be ready. I like that.
Yeah, if Najee isn't ready at the beginning, Najee's not playing at all.
I like that a lot. Things are gonna get spicy.
I don't like the speculation on my second round pick if he's going to be the ball carrier or not, though.
What do you mean? Omarion?
For week 1 in the eliminator?
Oh, I mean, I think
if Najee is healthy and they give him the bulk of the carry, your second round pick is nothing? I don't have that worry at all with Bucky.
Yeah, but Omarion's profile, they're profiling that they're gonna use him.
Oh, Omarion's profile is great, and so is this pick. I'm gonna get Lamar Allen.
So I see Gunther beating CM Punk. I don't think they give Punk the championship on this. I despise Jade Cargill, but I think Jade's probably going to beat Tiffany Stratton there. Randy Orton and Jelly Roll versus Drew McIntyre and Logan Paul. I don't see it. I can see them doing a joke over with Jelly Roll over Logan Paul, but I think Drew McIntyre wins that for the team. Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair are probably going to win over Rodriguez and Perez. Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are set up to win that matchup against the Uso, Jay and Roman. Sami Zayn's going to win that. Cody Rhodes is probably going to beat John Cena. Io Sky is absolutely going to win that matchup for the Women's World Championship. Becky Lynch is probably going to win that again, even though nobody likes her. Fatu is going to win. Dominic Mysterio is going to beat AJ Styles. That's going to be huge. And then probably the Wyatt Six probably keeps the championship there. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting matchups. I'll probably watch it on replay, to be honest with you, King. I do like some of those matchups in there. All right, so we got Jane Daniels. I think Jane Daniels is probably the worst pick so far in this eliminator. I just don't see it. I see the value there, but I'd rather have Hurts if I was going to take anybody in the 4th round quarterback ways.
I'm actually debating taking Hurts as well. Like just doubling up a quarterback.
Bold of you. You never do that in this style of tournament.
Well, I love it when the decision gets made for me. I am not concerned at all about. I love the Kamara pick. That's a very good Kamara pick. But I am not concerned at all about the potential injury risk.
Of who?
Or the potential contract risk.
Mm-hmm. I think in the eliminator that I would be more willing to push Terry McLaurin down my board, Joe, than most people. In Bestball Mania, he's probably still up there, like, probably still 4th round. But think about this. When we were initially drafting teams before the season started, Terry McLaurin was oftentimes at the front end of the 3rd round. So, when these teams pop off, you're getting a very good value on Terry McLaurin for the beginning weeks for this tournament. To get him in the 4th round or the 5th round is valuable. Likewise, and conversely, right, is Alvin Kamara was lower, and now you have to pay a more premium price to get him. And so that's kind of the opposite of the Terry McLaurin. So Terry McLaurin fell, Alvin Kamara went up. But when we look at, teams, I could be losing out on a player versus you winning out and getting a bonus player that the other Terry McLaurin lineup people don't have. Whereas I'm losing
and
out.
Hubbard's climbing too.
Hubbard.
We used to be getting Hubbard in the 5th.
Hubbard has also climbed to the 4th, and Ken Walker as well. Again, in this tournament, people are going to be pushing running back a little bit more. So Kenneth Walker is usually 5th.
I got higher floor.
So it is what it is. And I think a lot of people are trying to just win week 1. Win week 1, move on. And see what happens from there. And again, like we said, the eliminator, you still need 3 wide receivers, but people are willing to push those a little bit later so that they can get certain running backs up on the board that they might not usually take early. And I'm going to do one that I don't normally take, but I'm going to take James Conner. In a full season-long contest like Bestball Mania, I maybe would stay away from James Conner a little bit. But I think in this tournament specifically, I want my high upside for week 1 plus, to get past some of these games. Like I'm looking at Arizona's schedule. I see New Orleans, Carolina, San Francisco, Seattle, Tennessee, Indy, Green Bay. Like most of those are pretty trash. And it isn't until you get to week 15 and week 14 that they actually play a defense that is like scary rushing wise. I can't get around it in a tournament like this eliminator where like you're winning money if you get to week 14. So all things considered the same, I think that's worth it. Jamie said, King here for SummerSlam predictions, go to In Between Media, and he has a dude, Steve Lawson, just did a podcast about it. Yeah, there's a lot of good storylines coming up. I know Joe doesn't follow, but it's good to get excited about it.
But that's all right.
All right, so now we've got to look at overall upside. Yeah. I'm going to take I could take. I don't know. I'm gonna take Jacoby. A little high for Jacoby, but I almost took Joe Burrow as well, just to kind of solidify week 1. I'm actually surprised that Joe Burrow has fallen. Remember, Joe, when we were doing these earlier in the season, and Joe Burrow was up there in like the 3rd round. In this tournament, in the Eliminator, I do think people in the Eliminator specifically are not as stack overload as in other tournaments, because they don't want one bad game from a big stack.
That is true.
So they're willing to kind of spread the board out a little bit more and get a bunch of different assets to kind of complement one another. I think it's interesting. I especially think that team 1 is really interesting, where you have Omarion, Brees, and Ken Walker, where their points per game could be elite level points per game. And Jamar and Travis Hunter as well could have a huge amount of upside depending on how he gets looked at in this offense. And Josh Downs there, Joe, going round 6. That's your boy. Igbuka.
There's one of my boys there.
With the news about Godwin, Igbuka climbing up the boards, especially in this Eliminator around 6.
Yeah, I think it's a little premature, but
I think it's a huge upward swing for him. And Joe Mixon, because of the injury, is falling. Similarly, the news about about Mason being the dude over Aaron Jones is scaring a lot of people off of Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones never really was a high upside kind of play anyway. So, I mean, Juwan Jennings, news came out that he's hurt again.
I was hoping he was going to slip to me, Bob.
They had nobody else. Like I said,
I was going to take him.
They have McCaffrey, but if they don't have like Pearsall, it's not that they don't have anybody else, but these injuries for this team are crazy. And for Ricky Pearsall, who came off the pup to go, 15, 16 picks ahead of Jennings, I think is right. But also, you can't let him fall too far, right? What's the injury he's dealing with? Calf. Seems to be right par for the course for San Francisco, right, Joe?
Calves are tricky. Sure does.
I mean, come on. This feels like deja vu again. Deja vu. Hey, Johnny, what's happening, man? Absolutely. Put it in the chat. Everybody in the chat, too, will give you some good advice as well. I wonder where our guy family is from New Zealand. We have another viewer over there on the Pacific side of the world. But yeah, absolutely. Put it in the chat, Johnny. We got a lot of good minds in here today. There goes Kyler Murray with the Trey McBride stack. Okay. Where did Zay Flowers go? I didn't even see Zay Flowers go after pick 57. Okay. Makes sense.
There you go. And you see Jones and Mason going right next to each other. I mean, earlier in the process, we were getting Mason in the 12th round. And I was picking him up, but you kept telling me I was crazy when I said he was going to be the starter.
Yeah. I mean,
Mason, for someone if he ain't going to use him.
Mason. Yeah, but here's the thing: they traded for him, but the other issue is that they also paid Aaron Jones a sickening amount of money. Just absolutely.
Yeah, but see, the thing with amount of money is that the cap is so stupid high. People's perceptions haven't reset.
Mm-hmm. Another guy here, Joe, I just took him off the board. It's an eliminator. I'm looking for high upside here. J.K. Dobbins, he's a guy that climbed from not even being drafted to the 8th round. Talk about our meteoric rise. And we talked about this earlier in the offseason. We did, where, RJ Harvey was being drafted up here in like the 4th round. Then J.K. Dobbins arrives. He gets going in there. And we said, get in on J.K. Dobbins before he signs with the team, right? I was telling you, we were down here in like the 16th round, I remember saying, take Dobbins, and you took somebody else. And I was like, and I crashed out on you about it. But
I remember that.
Put it in the chat, Johnny. I think you took like Zach Moss or some bullshit like that.
I probably did. I was big on Zach Moss. I still think I might be, but he must to be cut this early before they put pads on. He must still be hurt.
He's absolutely still hurt. I mean, I can't see a universe where a severe neck injury.
Whoa! Look at that quarterback run.
Yeah. I can't see a universe where a severe neck injury like that doesn't play a significant role into what's going to, his career overall. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I liked him. I like this opportunity.
I'm going to give you your boy.
Which one?
The only boy you have right now. Oh, you took him? Why didn't you take Tracy? I absolutely.
Why did I take Tracy? Because I've already taken 4 running backs.
Yeah, but he was well after ADP. It's your boy.
Hey.
All right.
10-man league. Spot where I stopped looking at ADP. I just look at my own rankings.
So Johnny's question here is 10-man league, 2 quarterback, 3 flex, full PPR, tight end, premium. So there's a lot going on there. That's insane formatting. The offer is Quinshon, Tua, and Cooper Kupp for my Olave, Shadur, and Russell Wilson. Johnny, I can't say that I'm excited about most of those players in that deal. I would not do that. I can see why you might want to, but right now...
No, Olave is the most valuable piece of that puzzle.
We've talked about this, at a significant rate, that I don't feel right now that Quinshon Judkins in a just a home league, playing with your buds or anything like that has any value, because they didn't even sign him. It's not looking like they're going to sign him or that they want to sign him. So for me, he's off the table. So, you might believe in a potential resurgence for a guy like Cooper Kupp, but there's a lot of reasons to say that Cooper Kupp isn't what Seattle needs. So for me, I really do like Olave and Shadur on this side of things, because I don't think that the Quinshon. Let me ask you this, Johnny. Who are your starting quarterbacks? Are your starting quarterbacks Russell Wilson and Shadur? Because just like Jamie says, I like Olave. Olave and Judkins do have similar-ish value in Dynasty because one concussion away from not playing again, and Judkins not playing currently, and Tua is probably a better option than Russell Wilson. Picks are much better than Cooper Kupp. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
Oh, yeah.
If you were in a dynasty, you want picks instead of Cooper Kupp?
Yes.
All right, we're going to go with some upside receivers coming up there. I'll get back to the chat in a moment. Goff falling, you like to see that. We talked about Goff earlier in the offseason. I saw Najee fall all the way to the 13th round the other day when I was doing one of these, Joe. Crazy precipitous drop. Gotta love that. All right, I lined up my next 3 guys. Hopefully you don't take any of them. Maybe. And we'll get to that question, Nick, in a moment. Yeah, Johnny, definitely lay out your team in the chat, please. You son of a gun. That was my guy. That was my pick.
You wanted your Mims?
Shit. We'll take Tyler Warren. I see upside there, just like you said, Joe. I wanted Mims. I only have 4 wide receivers. I wanted Mims. I think it's – I don't
That's
like –
where I was looking too.
What were you looking at?
I was looking at Mims. Mims wasn't getting past me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I can push a little bit of wide receivers to the back end. There's some wide receivers that I still like on the board, so I'm not.
You know, one of the things we did not do before this draft started, Bob, did we see if any of our listeners are drafting with us?
We did not. We did not. Yeah, but Johnny, put that all in the chat. Put your team in the chat.
Are any of you guys drafting with us?
Because I do think, that's something when we look at this trade. Does it make your team better? We need to kind of look at the whole thing because I think Tua is an upgrade over guys like Shadur and potentially over a guy like Russell Wilson because, again, the only thing standing in Tua's way is Tua. So the question is, oh, man, guy again, man, snapping up everybody that I like.
Snap them up. I'm about to do a reach here.
You doing a reach? Reach.
Cleveland running back run. Cleveland run.
Oh, man, was that a Cleveland run? Disgusting. You're gross.
That's a Cleveland run.
You are disgusting. All right, we took Penix there. I was going to take Bryce Young. I still might take Bryce Young. We'll see. But absolutely, I wanted Sampson there, but I didn't want to take him the round prior because I didn't like the value there. But getting sniped on a couple of guys here, not a big fan of that, Joe. Being a super sniper.
I didn't do it.
You didn't do it? I know. A couple other people did it. We'll be fine though. Fine. Penix. I love Penix. But let's get to some of these other questions while Johnny puts his team into the chat as well. So is Tracy Jr. a pickup this season? Absolutely. This is a team that, has minimal amounts of weapons. And there's no reason to say that Cam Scatterbu can't be a lead back, but also he doesn't really profile to what the, this offense is probably really, really good at. So like, I'm not really sold on a player like Cam Scatterbu, but Tyrone Tracy does have that receiving upside and Russell Wilson does dump it down a good amount. So, if I had to bet on anybody, I'd probably bet on Tracy from this offense plus Neighbors. But I think that Tracy is a good value there. Hi, buddy. Oh my goodness.
Here's a guy who's a definite not buy is Luke Burton. He's already hurt, crowded room. He's a wasted pick.
Luther. Hey, Luther. All right, do we take? Say hi. Oh, there you are. You're on the screen.
What's up, JoJo?
Hey, buddy. Oh my God. And my boy likely out 6 weeks is not something I like. Yeah.
No, but that's a reason to push Andrews up. Plus, obviously, you had
And I did push him up. Yeah, so for me,
I'm taking a little bit more Buffalo. I don't normally take Kincaid or Coleman, but I have Josh Allen, and it's natural.
And Devontae Walker at wide receiver. I mean, I see it because again, when you look at Baltimore and you look at the options, it's Henry, Andrews, Lamar, and then see what happens with the other wide receivers. You got Hopkins, Bateman. Likely's hurt. And so there's opportunities for guys like that in your lineup. But honestly, if I'm not taking them in the last round of wherever I'm drafting, I'm probably not drafting them at all. Gotta take that to mama. Gotta take it to mommy. Were you crying upstairs, bud? Waking up. Is Hurts a solid QB1? Absolutely. 100%. All right.
Hell yeah, he is.
We're going to take Thielen. I almost took Likely there, but, with the injury, push him down. See how far he falls. I'm willing to see how far he falls. Don't have enough running backs. Want to get a couple more. We're in 14th round. We'll take some upside guys, I think, coming up very soon. Let's see where that rolls us. Love to get him. I like you not being able to see my board here, Joe. It's definitely a more pleasurable experience.
Well, that's why we're doing it this way. You're not seeing my board. I'm not seeing yours. It's mysterious.
So Johnny has Caleb and Dak, Hampton and Henderson, Puka and Amon-Ra, Kelsey, Ingram. The flex is Odunze, Pickens, Reeds, Downs, Olave, Etienne, likely. Yeah, you don't need to do that trade at all, Johnny. It doesn't. On your bench, having Shedeur, Mason Taylor, and Dylan Sampson in your taxi squad is awesome. Jamie's thoughts, I think your team only benefits from that trade if you can get that second over Cup. The depth seems good enough to be able to lose Olave and add a potential top 15 running back. Yeah, you definitely – yeah, I'm not seeing that – I don't really like Judkins because, I don't think he plays. This year I know they invested a lot into him, but I don't think that he's going to sign until this whole thing clears up. And that could be a while from now. So, again, though, Judkins –
every second, I heard the report today, every second round draft pick is signed.
So they signed Judkins?
Judkins.
All right, maybe I missed that.
I believe so.
Cautiously optimistic about Judkins. Yeah,
but again,
I mean,
they didn't have they have to sign him. The contract's sitting in front of them. They can't rescind the contract as a draft pick.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, like,
they cannot play him.
And the thing is that with these injuries, Olave could be going out. He's closer to going out than staying in the league, if you catch what I'm saying, right? So
Olave? Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, for me, I'm willing to – I like Olave a lot, but with your depth that you have here, you don't necessarily need him. Odunze, Pickens, Reeds, and Downs ahead of Olave. You aren't playing him most weeks. I understand that it's 3 flexes and 2 wide receivers, starters as well, but you're not playing them, and your running back room is kind of iffy, with the 2 rookies and then ETN. So accumulating Judkins, if you can trade off of Cup, there
goes likely, Bob.
Yeah, pick 177. That's good. Trading off of Cup and getting a pick instead, I think makes a lot of sense for your team, because you're not gonna be playing Cup either, which is the whole kind of, you want to get assets that you can utilize or you can play. You're not going to be playing Cup either, so I wouldn't do that. I would try to get the pick, Tua, the pick. Honestly, do you really need Tua? Could you see what it just cost to get Judkins? Right, Joe? I mean,
yeah. Do
you need him?
Which shouldn't be all that much in this moment in time.
I'm fine rolling Russell Wilson one more year and seeing what happens. Jackson Dart maybe looks good in practice here, but why not? Why not just kind of see where the cards lie, Johnny, and see what it would cost to just get Judkins. If it would cost Olave, if the guy wants Olave for Judkins, sure, do it. I'm actually surprised that Sam Darnold's still on the board. Kind of shocked by that.
I did that for stacking. Warren is the receiving back. I got the tight end. I am putting stacking into my lineup.
Well, I got a stack. I have the Lamar Bateman and
No, you got a Lamar stack going. And I got a lot of Buffalo stack.
Yeah,
like I said, in terms of offenses, Buffalo's not one of ever having a down game. I'm just not. You make an argument I got the wrong pieces of it, taking Coleman and Kincaid?
Maybe. You might. All right, we're going to be taking 2 running backs here, maybe, that might have some upside for the long haul, and then seeing where it lands. I always have a question about Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt always ends up on the field somehow. He's not a particularly efficient running back. But what will happen? What will happen? All right, we're gonna go.
First, you got to make the team, Bob.
It's true. All right, there goes one
Woody
of my guys.
Marks is growing on me.
There goes the second one of the players that I had queued up. I queued up both of those just now, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get at least one of them.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get the feeling.
Son of a gun.
Jermaine Burton is not going to make that team. Just want to put that out there. Roman Wilson is one of my boys coming off the board.
Oh, Shooky. How many quarterbacks do you have? 3? In the eliminator,
yeah,
I don't feel like you.
6-3.
I don't feel like you need 3. I really don't. The original trade he sent was without Russ and Tua involved. I countered and said maybe if we had Tua and Russ, and he said yes, and now we're here. Okay, so the trade before was just Judkins and Cup for and Shadur, and that was the basis of the original trade. I mean, I honestly don't hate that either, but again, like, there's so much unknown. I like Theo Johnson there. There is so much unknown about Shadur's situation. Like, yeah, Kenny Pickett getting hurt, does it benefit Shadur? Absolutely. Is there going to be opportunities for Shadur next year, the year after that, the year after that? You can make a reasonable argument that yes, there will be. But also, like, is he a piece that you absolutely want to keep? I'm not 100% sure. And I'm also not 100% sure that I really want to be buying Tua right now in a dynasty league. Again, he has like really high. He has like, high upside when he's on the field. He is one of the better fantasy quarterbacks. He has top 5 upside when he's on the field. But the point is that he might not be on the field, right? And so, like, for me, I think you're fine with Dak and Caleb and Shadur and Russell Wilson. I think that covers you. Like it covers the gamut on a lot of different levels. So you have some vets there, you have some young guys there. It covers you pretty much. And if you want to go out and get Judkins to get into your lineup, Judkins, how about you do something like this? Judkins and a pick for Olave and Shadur or something like that. See if you can make your money back on Shadur. Because the question that I have for you, Johnny, is when did you draft Shadur? What round did you draft him this year? Did you draft him in the first round? Did you draft him in the second round? Probably the second or third round, depending on your rookie draft was. And for me, like, I think that I don't really need him on my team, but if I want him, because think about this, like, again, there are going to be great players coming out next year as well. And you want to prepare yourself potentially for the Arch Manning, situation. So loading up on picks in, next year or the year after that to potentially get in there, I think is good, because going in right now, Johnny, and taking potentially a dead asset in Cooper Kupp and then taking a right now dead asset in Quinshon Judkins, who's, most likely not going to play the first couple of games if he plays at all this year.
That's big if.
Judkins and Cooper Kupp for Olave and Shadur makes sense. It does make sense to me. I would probably go back to the beginning of that trade. Maybe you disagree with me because you did counter it with Tua and Russ, but I don't see a big monumental difference between Tua and Russ. Because again, Russ is in the twilight of his career, but Tua could be knocked out of his career very easily.
So good.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I don't know. I definitely check out Jamie's podcast tonight about Dynasty, because there'll be a couple of interesting kind of levels to the whole Judkins scenario, Joe. I got to check out your team. Who'd you end with here? So Nico, Bucky, Terry, a lot. Okay, all right. I think you got a good chance of making it out. I think anybody with a top 5 quarterback in this scenario making it out week 1. We got the quarterbacks go. And the thing is, week 1, you have Josh Allen and Lamar going off of one another. So that game could be
it's a ton of points.
50 points or whatnot. So, all things considered, I think it's a decent draft. You went a little bit less running backs than I thought you would.
I ended up with 6 of them.
You ended up with 6.
Took 3 in the first 7 rounds.
Williams, Ramondre. You took okay. I mean, fair enough. I took 3 too. I took them a little bit higher capital. But yeah, I think all things considered, I think that both.
But guys, I'm going to let Bob here float.
No, I got to get going through the little one's up. So, Johnny,
I think both.
Let us know if it helps out. Get back to us next week. We're going to be live on air Monday, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time here in the United States. Feel free to join us. Let us know how those trades went down. We're going to be talking more DFS, more redraft next week with a little bit of best ball in there as well. Stay tuned. See you next week, 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. Peace out, everybody. Thanks for everything.